Good morning. It'll work. Controls in the back. So. Can everybody hear okay? Talk really loud. I'll control it there in the back and get that up a little bit. Welcome everybody today for the live celebration of Jim Norton. My name is Stephen Ferner. I'm with the funeral home. The family's asked that I officiate today. I appreciate this opportunity as we celebrate Jim's life. I'd like to recognize that family prayer was given earlier. That was given by his son-in-law, Adam Bouchard. We'll start with the opening prayer, and that'll be offered by Jim's son, Jonathan Norton, after which his daughter, Amanda Bouchard, will speak to us, and we'll go to that point. Jonathan?
In the words of my dad, shit, damn, hell, fart. On behalf of myself, my mom, and brothers, this is going to take a long time. I just want to thank all of you for being here, for all the love and support amidst this awful disease. I'm not going to see this because my eyes are watering. Amidst this awful disease, the love and humanity that I've witnessed has left me humble and grateful. Many of you have meant so much to our family over the years. You made a lot of great memories, which I will cherish. Your kindness and unwavering presence means the world to us. Thank you. So as we're gathered here today to honor and celebrate the life of my dad, I can't help but reflect on the unique spirit that defined him. You see, my dad has a few key traits that I think really kind of sum him up. One, his deep love of nature. He always was finding rocks, collecting them, rocks in his pockets. Even until his last day, Mom was finding them in his pockets and collections on his dresser. Number two, that the belief that the rules didn't always apply to him. Number three, his love for fun. And number four, of course, is his generosity. My favorites being number two, when he thinks the rules don't apply to him, which is my mom's least favorite. His love for fun, number three. The ideas he would come up with. He was always playing with us. Sometimes those traits got him into trouble, like the time he was kicked out of my high school basketball game at Provo High. And after leaving the gym, he kept peeking around the corner, trying to get a glimpse of the game. Dad had a unique way of interpreting the rules. Double yellow lines on the road indicate no passing. didn't hold the same meaning for him. He saw possibilities where others saw limitations. His audacity extended beyond the road. At jazz games, he would boldly park in the handicap stall and tell them that he had a little Down syndrome boy with him, or a little handicap boy with him. I think John was 30. Easily walked his butt into the game. He embraced life with a mischievous sense of humor that never failed to bring laughter to those around him. When it came to building a cabin, Dad took charge with his characteristic determination. Armed with nothing more than a hammer and screwdriver, we embarked on a seemingly impossible project. But as the days, years, decades passed, we discovered that his resourcefulness knew no bounds. Before we knew it, we had amassed an entire arsenal of construction tools, transforming our humble endeavor into a fully equipped construction company. These anecdotes serve as reminders of Dad's ability to bend the rules and find inventive solutions to every challenge. His fearless spirit and relentless determination showed us that with a dash of creativity, perseverance, you can't see, and the willingness thanks. Good for something, I guess. Okay, let's start that over. His fearless spirit and relentless determination showed us that with a dash of creativity, perseverance, and a willingness to challenge conventional norms, that we could overcome any obstacle in our way. He never let the rules hold him back. He found a way to make his own rules and enjoy life to the fullest. In 1979, Dad was working as a supermarket rep with a food brokerage company in Salt Lake City. He would do his stores during the day. He'd come home, have dinner with the family, and then he'd paint late into the night. After several years of this grind, one day it hit him while driving to work. I've got to paint 10 or 12 hours a day. He knew from playing sports that if you don't put in the time, you'll never make it. He went straight into his boss that morning and put in his notice. Then he broke the news to my mom that night on a walk after dinner. She said, "I'll give you 5 years." And that was it. I can only imagine the reaction from my mother. I think Nathaniel was 18 months and she was pregnant with John. But what an incredible ride it turned out to be. He took risks. He had a ton of wild ideas. And he didn't hesitate to figure it out along the way. Dad entered the world on December 31st, 1953 in Price, Utah, as the firstborn child of Gay and Jim Norton. Growing up as the eldest of 5 children, 5 siblings, sorry. He had an adventurous spirit that flourished during his childhood, spent in various places around Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico. It was in Moab, Utah, that he found a deep connection to nature. He spent countless hours exploring the red rocks that have always had a special place in his heart. Dad was always looking at the world around him and dissecting it into shapes and values. I remember coming home from school and seeing him out on the back lawn, watching clouds billow over him. Every car ride, he was testing us. what colors do you mix? To make the shadow on that cloud. Cobalt blue, a little touch of alizarin. If we drove past a lake or river, what color is the water? If you say blue, you are wrong. Now I can't help but do the same. I'll deconstruct a mountain into abstract shapes and start testing my color theory. He taught us to really take in the world around us, to study and appreciate it. Appreciate the small things, like the color of shadow, or the way color would gradate on a flower petal. By 1989, at the age of just 36, Dad's talent and dedication led him to be admitted into the prestigious Cowboy Artists of America. His work had started to cement his reputation as one of the leading Western artists. After countless awards, he's still known as one of the best. There's still more.
You can do it.
Perhaps the trait that brought the most joy to his life was his love for fun. His creative and imaginative mind was always at work, conjuring up wild and unforgettable ideas. He had a knack for turning everyday activities into moments of laughter and excitement, from impromptu football games in the front yard with all the neighbor boys and me, to sledding down Buttbucker Hill in his 60s with his grandchildren. He approached life with an infectious playfulness that made life so fun for all of us. Generosity was another hallmark of his character. He was always ready to share anything he possessed, except for his beloved boat, but anything else. He willingly offered his time, encouragement, unwavering support to those in his life. He mentored numerous artists who are now thriving in their own right. He graciously shared his talents with schools and educational institutions. Dad's legacy of generosity and mentorship continues to thrive in our community. Dad, thank you. That the rules don't always apply. That I can carve my own path. That life should be fun and silly. That I can do anything boys can do. And that there's always time for ice cream. Dad, whenever I see you, whenever I see cobalt blue, I'll remember you. I say amen.
Jonathan and Amanda, you guys did awesome. You made your dad proud today. At this time, we'll go ahead and have a musical selection named Cool Water. Will be done by Keela Gowdy, accompanied by Aaron Jones. Following that, Nathaniel Norton will speak, and then his friend Andy Gowdy will speak.
All day I faced a barren waste without the taste of water, cool water. All dead and I, with throats burnt dry and souls that cry for water. Cool, clear water. The nights are cool and I'm a fool. Each star's a pool of water. Cool water. But with the dawn I awaken yearn and carry on to water. Cool, clear water. Keep on moving, man, don't you listen to him, man. He's a devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand with water. Oh, damn, can't you see that big green tree where the water's running free and it's waiting there for you and me? Oh, water. Cool, clear water. The shadows sway and seem to say, tonight we pray for water. Cool water. And when you're there, you hear a prayer and show us where there's water. Cool, clear water. Dan's feet are sore, he's yearning for just one thing more than water. Cool water. Like me, I guess you like to rest where there's no quest for water. Cool, clear water. Keep moving, man, don't you listen to him, man. He's a devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand with water. Oh, Dan, can't you see that big green tree where the water's running free and it's waiting there for you and me? Oh, water.
Thanks, Keela and Aaron, Andrew later. That song, Dad always tried to get us to sing that song when we were kids. Every time we're driving somewhere, he tried to get us to sing, and he wanted us all to sing different parts of it. it didn't work. As you can tell, none of us were up here singing that song. But he would also, anytime any of us wanted or needed to pee, he would start singing that song. It's been a rough couple weeks, couple of years, but as I told many of you last night, many of you heard, I truly would be rather standing here today than watching him die in that assisted living home. This is truly better, as hard as it is. We got a letter given to us last night. My wife and I are the only ones who've read it so far. From an old high school friend of his. And I just thought a couple things out of it I wanted to share about his life that, from a different perspective, from somebody I know a little bit, met him a few times, but I didn't know him. So I'll just read a couple things. He was a great sports fan, always a Rams football fan. Roman, Gabriel, and Dick Butkus were his heroes. He ran the mile in track, and he ran a 5:27 mile, which was amazing. We were co-captains of the football team then, and no one could do more sit-ups than Jim. He was a great basketball player too. He even got to start and play with his brother Benny. He ran against me for student body president our senior year and won. I think in part because of the great posters he had hanging everywhere. I asked him once for notes from our history class. All I got was pictures of Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, and Yosemite Sam. It was always drawing fun pictures. Let's get down a little bit. He says, when I got married, he gave me a picture that he had painted for a wedding present. I didn't have a wall to hang it on, much less a place to even call my own at the time. I really wasn't that excited to get it. He told me, you better keep it. I'm going to be famous someday. It's now one of my favorite possessions, and it's 48 years old. I've seen that picture. Dad came a long way in 48 years. But one night, I was walking the halls with him up at the assisted living care. And they had a lot of his prints hanging there. I kept harassing him. We stopped by one. And this one particular one, he's won quite a few awards for. He could hardly put a sentence together at this point. Didn't know how much he actually remembered. But I stopped him and said, Dad, what do you think of this painting? He gets really close to it, studies it for a few minutes like he always did when he was looking at a piece of art. And he said, it's pretty good. I did a pretty good job on it, except right here. And I pointed to one area, just kept circling his hair. He said, this area, right here, that needed some work. That's not right. I said, what do you mean? He says, I think the guy got in a hurry and just sent it out before he fixed it. That's exactly what happened. He was always painting. Nothing was due. That's just how we were. Like Amanda said, pushing the limits. Whether that was last to paint a show, passing, pulling the boat with his whole family in the car, while friends behind us are going, we're going to clean them up off the highway today? Or climbing a pine tree that some of his trapper friends had treed a mountain lion in because he wanted to get a closer picture to it. And it's true, I have seen the pictures. He did climb a pine tree, and he took pictures, and he jabbed it with a stick because it wouldn't bare its teeth and snarl at him. And he poked it till he got the pictures he wanted, and then the mountain lion finally jumped out of the tree. He was doing something like that. Drove my mom nuts. I always thought it was fun. When we'd go somewhere, I would often say, well, we can drive with Mom, and we're going to get there. and not be quite as fun. We can drive with Dad and dig our hands into the hand grip. Are we going off the side of the road? Are we gonna pass this car in time or not? Yeah, who knows? We always got there though. He did get pulled over twice when I was with him for drunk driving. They had this old houseboat when I was very little. And one time they went down there and the steering was broken. So they rigged up a pulley system on the old outboard motor on this houseboat. And him and his friends pulled it on each side of the rope going down to like keep this old rickety houseboat going straight down. It just, nothing was getting in the way of this fun. At the cabin, many of you heard stories that I don't know, no one died up there. We probably should have, but we didn't. But when we were building the railing around the deck was 10 to 12 feet high off the ground and very rocky underneath. And he told me he wanted to leave a section open so he could drive his golf balls off the deck. I said, Dad, you can't leave a section open. It's my cabin, I can do whatever I want. I said, you can't leave. Dad, there's a 12-foot drop. Somebody's gonna fall off it. No, they won't. I said, what about grandkids? They gonna fall off? Nope. We compromised and I built a gate so he could swing that open, drive his golf balls off the deck. He loved it. That was his, and he'd get there, that was one of his favorite things to do. Another thing that he always had that we're still trying to figure out is the guy. Anything he did, whether it was getting directions, buying something, putting our Christmas presents together, the guy told him how to do it. The guy gave him the directions. I talked to the guy. Everything, okay? We still don't know who the guy is. We got to find him, but I helped him figure a lot of stuff out. I know who the guy is. And so, I just decided I was just going to talk about my dad. He's always there for us, just like everybody said. His siblings have told me the same thing. He always played with us, coached us, and just bent over backwards to make sure that everybody was taken care of. One more story to tell about him. Many of you heard it. I've heard it my whole life. It's one of my favorite stories. If it sounds fake, it should be. It's not. Some of you, I know at least one person here was there that day. And I don't know that he remembers anything more than I do, so we're just gonna tell the story. They were down at Lake Powell, a group of them. I think there was 4, 5, maybe 6 guys. They all went down fishing and painting for a weekend. And they came across a coyote. They'd come down off the cliffs, and it was pretty steep. It wasn't vertical, but it was and there was a little beach there. And both ends, the cliff came out, kind of cut this coyote off. He was stranded on this beach. They watched him for a bit as he'd run up and down the beach, he'd run up the rock, he'd tumble back down. He'd go try to swim, and he'd turn around because he decided it was too far. So my dad, in true, not thinking of consequence nature, they decided they could rope this coyote. So they got a ski rope. Ski rope. They didn't have a lasso with them, they had a ski rope. And they roped this coyote. And then they're stuck with the problem, now what? We've got a wild coyote stuck on the end of the string, so what are we gonna do now? Well, they got this bright idea that I'm sure came from my dad. Since he loved to water ski, he figured if the coyote's already tied up, if he can just get it going, he'll just get up on land, basically barefoot. You know? So they pulled the slack out of the rope, just like you would for a water skier. put the throttle down, and that coyote went straight down. Because that's what happens without a water ski. So he then tells it that, he said, wait, everybody get up to the front of the boat. We gotta get on plane faster, we can do this. They get everybody to the front of the boat, and hit it again, coyote, down. And each time this soaking wet dog with a rope around its neck comes paddling the surface, just gasping for air. I think it's happened 3 times before they decided, okay, this isn't gonna work. So the boat they were in was my grandpa's old boat, and it was hardtop. So cabinets enclosed on 3 sides with a roof. Bow, high railing, probably about 2 feet high, nothing like low railings now. And they decided that they could lift this coyote up and put him on the bow of the boat. So they lift this coyote up by the rope, by its neck, hoist him up on there, and they think he's gonna ride waxed fiberglass surface. If any of you ever seen a dog walk on a wood floor, yeah, it doesn't really work that well. So they get him up there, and they have a couple of guys hold some oars and a boat hook over the side and over the top, so this coyote doesn't get scared and come flying up over the roof into the rest of the boat with them. At least they thought that part through. They headed off down the lake. Well, pretty soon, of course, that coyote is on a slippery surface, and he just slowly starts right off into the water again. So they drag him up. Again, I think this happened 2 or 3 times before the coyote finally passed out. So they lifted the coyote up, and they got him back to their camp, where they put him up on the beach. For some reason, put some anchovy or sardines in front of his nose, like they were smelling salts or something. And that coyote laid there. He eventually came to, and my dad said he took one look at them and took off, flying across the deck. I can't imagine the story that coyote had. But that's how my dad operated. Have fun. Go fast. We'll worry about the consequences and what happens later. If we roll a boulder off the mountain, we don't look and find out who's at the bottom before it goes. We just send it. That's how we did things. He loved ice cream, and I took him for a drive last fall. And he wasn't too much there. But we pulled back into the driveway. He looked like a little toddler, kind of pouting. Dad, what's the matter? Why didn't you get any ice cream? I said, well, Dad, I never said we were getting ice cream. We were just going for a ride. Well, I wanted ice cream. Loved ice cream. Some of you may argue with your own dads that you may think you've got the best dad in the world. I'll argue that, because I know we did. And I'm glad this is over. Watching him hurt and just be so confused. And he knew he was confused, and that's what made it harder. I know he's not confused now. He doesn't hurt now. The last week, hasn't been a week yet. The last few days have been hard, but they haven't been as hard as the last couple of weeks before that. So, grateful for all the friends he had. All you guys that have been here and support our family, been his friend through the years. For all the friends that would come and get him and take him for ice cream, take him golfing, take him to the rodeos. He loved that. Sometimes he wouldn't remember. He'd tell me he went somewhere, but he couldn't tell me where he went or who he went with. But he You guys seem to always remember that they got ice cream while he was out. We're gonna miss your dad. Right now, he's either golfing, playing basketball with his dad and his brother, or he's painting some horses in the sunset. Thanks, Dad. Amen.
Well, that was sure good. Oh my goodness. Have to follow that. That's a little challenging. But I appreciate John's prayer. We're going to get through this. Appreciate it very much. It's an honor to be able to stand before you and to remember to celebrate the life of Jim. It's been he gave us all a gift in the last few days, as every one of us have reflected back on all the good memories. It was something that I've enjoyed. My memories start back, and I want to preface this by saying, I mean no disrespect about some of the things in the stories I'm going to talk about. I love Jim like a brother, and I'm not here making fun of him. If he was here, I'd say the same stories and make fun of him the same way. But all we're doing is just, what's the old saying, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you, you just haven't started yet. So we're gonna talk a couple stories. My association with Jim started off back in 1983 and 4. I had an uncle that was working out at Rockwell Ranch, and he was telling me that a couple of these young artists came out to take some pictures. And he said, we modeled and did some writing and did some, this is my Uncle Andy, and he said, they might be pretty good artists, but he said, I'd be doing something, I'd be pushing these cows up the fence line, and he'd be there clicking pictures, in the way, clicking pictures, and then he'd all of a sudden say, hey, see if you can get that white-faced cow on the edge, it'd look better on the edge. And he says, I'm here to push cows, not to be putting the volley-faced cow on the front. And he said, then he'd say, come down this hill. And he said, and my uncle said, as soon as I was about in an awkward position, then this Jim would say, stop right there, and look to the west. He said, this is a bunch of BS, I'm not going to deal with this. And he said, you need to meet this guy, and you have more time to deal with him than I have. And so it was a couple weeks after that, and I was in church, and he was out in the foyer. We shared the building. Back then, there was only one church building, and I met him there. We lined up a few chances to go do some pictures and have some adventures, and that started a whole bunch of adventures. And I appreciated how Amanda said it was just, he'd call up and say, I've got something else for us, Scotty. I'd say, okay, hunker down. What's it going to be? And it'd be big pack trips, or it'd be just going out and taking pictures and doing things like that. And I totally enjoyed Jim's sense of adventure and willingness to go out and to do things. And then he was frustrated with me because I'm colorblind. And Jim would always say, what color is that, Scotty? I don't know, gray. Or off-white. But yeah, he was always teaching and always wanting he'd see things. And it was fun when he'd do some of these art camps, and he'd have people from all over the United States coming to learn his techniques and his what he would see. And he taught people how to see, and he'd say, look at the green that's reflected off the grass on that horse's belly. And, you're reminded. But it was fun to see him train and to teach other people. He got handy enough, it was mentioned that, boy, the Cowboy Artists of America, the prestigious group, they saw his talents and they wanted to, usually people have to submit to be judged and to be accepted by them. But they came to Jim and invited him to go to a showing, and he submitted and brought his paintings, and boy, he was excited at this time. And thanks, and like it was mentioned, Pam, what a support. Can you imagine your husband coming home and saying, I'm not working, I'm gonna be a painter, I'm gonna be an artist. Oh my goodness, how's that gonna work? But Pam was supportive and behind him all the way. And for him to get back to be judged by the CA members, and he to be accepted into this prestigious organization, then he went back and showed some of his artwork, and boy, there was some good stuff, and they were impressed with it. And anyway, they accepted him in there. It was 89, as was mentioned, and there was an old boy who lived in Linden by the name of Grant Speed, and Grant Speed was from San Angelo, Texas, and by the time he told you what he had for breakfast, it was lunchtime, and he talked so slow, and he just drawled down, and he called Jim into the motel, and he said, Jim, and you probably know him, Grant, he said, you've got a beautiful wife. Grant, the first thing I mentioned about any artist, oh, and he's got such a lovely wife. But anyway, he went on from there and said, now, Jim, we want authenticity in our organization. We want it to represent the Cowboys the way they were. And Jim's nodding, going, yeah. And he says, but Jim, this painting you put in, you left the Hondo out of off the painting. You don't even show that there's a Hondo knot and it needs to be there. Now the Hondo is that little loop that's in the end of the rope that you made out of a ski rope that's the rope slides through. And Jim didn't know the terminology. He maybe knew what was there, and in this painting it didn't show. And Jim and he's wise, dumb like a fox, as they say. And he's nodding, saying, oh, yeah, I'll make sure, yeah, I'll do better next time. We'll make sure that's there. Well, he didn't have any idea where he's going to put the Hondo knot anywhere. He didn't know what part was. So his buddy, Gary Carter, who had been in the CA for a couple of years previous, and they'd been in different organizations, he went up to Gary at the show, and he said, God, that's sure a good painting you got there, Gary. It was a cowboy riding along the rope and everything. And old Jim said, still not knowing exactly what a Hondo knot was, and he walks up and he says, but you left the Hondo knot off the painting. And Gary says, no, it's right there. See that? That's the Hondo. And, oh yeah, okay, it's there. That's how Jim learned. He wasn't going to tell Grant, well, yeah, I just messed up. That was just as clever. I thought, God, only Jim could come up with that kind of an excuse or figure out how that was. And we had a lot of great memories from then on out, but there was always an adventure. And as we look through all the different collection of the different pieces of art, there's always a little story that goes with it that it's a joy to look back on. As I mentioned, the blessing that this last week has been to reminisce. It's been truly a joy of looking back, and as we go through all the different books and paintings that he's done, and they're all an adventure. There's some, and I agree wholeheartedly that when you rode with Jim, yeah, we had horses he and I had horses together, and we'd go up to Wyoming and different things. And before they got riding with Jim, all you had to do was open up the back end of the trailer and they'd hop in just left and right. A couple trips with Jim, they didn't even want to ride in the trailer. They were thrown from this side to that side and everywhere else. We had to whip them in there and you didn't get in there. They can't get in there. They kind of had a look of terror in their eyes. But the only thing that was worse than that, I've ridden with Jim quite a bit right up until the last year or two. And I had ridden over with him about a year and a half ago, before he wasn't driving, which was really upsetting to him. But the only thing that's worse than that is having him be your backseat driver. County, you gotta get over here, over here. You're gonna, that stop sign, okay, got you. Anyhow, but what a joy. But as I mentioned, I was looking through all these different articles. Jim was a legend in the art world. He is, he'll remain. Isn't that neat that his paintings are going to be passed on from generation to generation? His name, you know, I spent 34 years being a custodian, and the only thing that lasted for me was during the summer, if the kids weren't in school, then I'd have one room that'd be kept clean for a little while. Then as soon as nothing ever was the same. So all my labors, I brushed away. But Jim's labors, what he did, are going to last for hundreds of years. And I looked through here. He's known, you know, you go through here, you know, 2010, Jim Norton got the CA overall exhibition. He got that in 2001. He got all these oil paintings, 2013, 2010, all the way along here. Some that he would be proud of too is that in this recent one, then Jason Rich and Grant Redden, they won the awards, and those are two that Jim would have out at our different art camps, and those two guys, and Jim would be telling, okay, use a little bit of cobalt blue or anything, you know, and that's something to be proud, and that's something that I am proud to know this man, but that's not his best. That's not where he was the very best. He was really good, but he was the very best at being a dad. And we had a lot of talks and a lot of, I worked a split shift in my job. And so in the middle of the day, a lot of times, back when Amanda was going to school there, then half the time I had to get Patty and put Patty in the truck and take him up to Jim's while he's there to visit with him. Because Amanda would get on the school bus, and Patty, the little black dog, would run all the way to follow the school bus back down to school. I was the dog catcher also on the side, so I'd pick up Patty and say, let's go back home. While I was there, I'd go in and sit and talk, and we'd talk with Jim. And we had a lot of neat talks about plans of what he's going to do. And the greatest talks were when we were discussing our kids. And we, 15, 20 years ago, then there were a couple of times we'd sit in his studio, and we both have sons that have the suffix of their name Dunn, and there was worries and concerns and worries about the life and continuing on. And I'd be sitting down there with Jim. I thought, and we were the only ones in the house, except for Jonathan was back there. I don't know who in the world would mess up his cards every night, but every day he had to straighten the cards out and get it back in order again, and he spent a lot of time. But Jonathan, the angel, we were sitting there talking, and we both were a little teary-eyed, worried about our kids and what they were going to grow up to be like, and without even knowing that Jonathan was in hearing range. And Jonathan came in and gave Jim a big hug and said, "It's okay, fat boy. It's okay, fat boy." He was an angel. John was the angel. And John was exactly right. Everything's going to be okay. And everything is all right. There were sometimes we worry and we have all kinds of concerns for our kids. But Jim was taught as a young man what family was about. He was raised by great folks and had a great family. And he wanted the best for his family in every way. And you can see the results, what a great family it is. Jim also, I think it helped him quite a little bit. Maybe it was the competitive nature But he said his dad, when the boys would argue, then get out the gloves, they'd have to sit and fight with each other until they found one piece of tar they couldn't stop. And I thought that's where that competitive edge came in. And just exactly like Amanda said, when Jim was coaching, there were people who didn't care or didn't even know anybody on the court, but they were there just to watch Jim yell at Amanda. Don't shoot, don't shoot! Oh! But it goes in and Jim, Amanda and Jim had just such a fun relationship out on the court. And I enjoyed watching a few games myself and listening to Jim. Did you ever notice his vein get big on top of his head? A lot of fun. The competitive, and that was neat. But we could go on for a long time. That's not what we're here to do, though, so we can share stories for days to come. And we can pass them on. But thanks, everybody, for your love and concern. Some of the greatest people in the world are here because they're all with that same common denominator, the love of Jim and the love of the family. And we very much love Jim. And one thing that we need to always remember is this isn't goodbye, Jim. It's see you later, Jim. Thanks for a Savior who made it possible and they gave us the hope that this isn't just a so long, it's not a forever thing. It's just a pause in our life for a little while. It does give you good hope, good thoughts to think of Jim and his dad. And I'm sure, though that they might be on the highest seat in heaven, I can still hear Grandpa Jim saying, "Oh my hell, Jim." It's just the way it is. I've also been asked to share a poem in closing. I'd like to, and I tapped in to our buddy Aaron. He's got a lot of talent, and so I'm going to tap into him to help add to the emotion of the poem that we've got here. And this is a poem by Bruce Kishkaden, and it's kind of an appropriate one for as we talk about Jim's eye and understanding and appreciating nature, and this goes right along with that, but we'll share that with you. It was a tiny little graveyard on the rolling foothill plains. It was bleached by sun in the summer. It was swept by winter snows and rains. Their little group of settlers gathered on an autumn day around the homemade lumber coffin with their last respects to pay. A weary man who had wrung their living from that harsh and arid land, and beside them stood their women, wives with toil-worn hands. But there stood a figure among us that was wiry, straight, and trim. Everybody knew him as the Bronco Twister Jim. Just a hardened bunch of muscle tempered with a savage grit, and he had a reputation of a man who wouldn't quit. He could ride any Bronco, and he never dodged a fight. It was the first time anybody had ever seen his face turn white. Well, we didn't have a preacher, and the crowd was mighty slim. Just two women with weak voices sang an old-time gospel hymn. That's all we had for service. The old widow stood sobbing there, for her husband of a lifetime was being laid away without prayer. But she looked at the Bronco Twister, and she walked right up to him, and she put a trembling arm around him and said, "Pray, please won't you, Jim?" Well, you could see his figure straighten, and a look of quick surprise came across his swarthy features and his hard daredevil eyes. He could handle any Bronco, and he never dodged the fight, but this was the first time that anybody had seen his face turn white. But he took his big sombrero off his rough and shaggy head, and he looked towards the heavens, and this is how he prayed. He looked towards the mountains where the dancing shadows played, heaven must have been silent when they heard the way Jim prayed. Well, the years have passed since that day in the graveyard with that funeral in that lonely graveyard lot, and it gave us all a memory and a lot of food for thought. As we stood beside the coffin in the freshly broken sod, with that reckless bronco breaker talking heart to heart with God. Well, Les, when the prayer was over and the grave had been back filled on his rough, half-broken pony, he rode off towards the hill. We all just stood there in amazement, and we watched them as they rode away. There was no way we could thank him. There were no words we could say. Well, I hope when I have finished, and they lay me amongst the dead, that someone says a prayer above me, just like that bronco twister said. Thank you. Love you, Jim. Love you, family. Thanks so much. Say these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Andy. What a legacy. In conclusion, I'd like to read another poem that I've heard that has a lot of value in my eyes, and hopefully as a family and friends you'll appreciate it too. It's called The Dash. It's written by Linda Ellis. It goes, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For the dash represents all the time that they survive on earth. And now only those who loved them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel. And be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remember this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Listening to all these memories and experiences today makes me think of that particular poem and the dash, meaning Jim's life and Jim's legacy that he's going to share with you and will continue to live on throughout your lives. So at this time, we'll go ahead and we'll have a closing prayer. Following that, we will make our way to the San Juan City Cemetery, where we're going to have the opportunity to have Jim's casket placed on a horse-drawn wagon as we enter the cemetery. So we need a couple things from those of you that are here today when we make our way to the cemetery. Those of you that are going to be assisting today and being honored as pallbearers, we'll need you to follow us as we go to the church in San Juan, which is on 200 East. Just turn left and go south. We'll meet there in the parking lot. The rest of you, if you want to follow us, you're welcome to, but I would encourage most of you just to go ahead and make your way to the cemetery. Allow plenty of parking around the area where the grave is, so that when we come into the cemetery with Jim, there'll be places for us to be able to do that. So as we go to the cemetery, if the immediate family, if you guys will follow directly behind the funeral coach as we go, and we'll stop at the church and make that transfer there, okay? Please obey traffic laws as you make your way to the cemetery. There will not be an official escort, but we will be going down the old highway. We'll go up here to Main Street over to the light and we'll get on into the main highway, okay? So, at this time, we'll go ahead with the closing prayer. And once again, that'll be offered by Greg.
Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day and thankful for this time that we've had to spend together. I'm sure memories of Jim. Bless us that we might have safety in the rest of the day and say these things in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you for that. So at this time, if we could ask Paul Burrs, if you'll step up, make your way out into the foyer area, out onto the landing there, and then we'll bring him to you. So Paul Burrs, if you'll stand up at this time. Go ahead and make your way outside there. Okay, and at this time, if we could ask everyone to rise, and we'll allow the immediate family to exit first, and then the rest of you behind them, okay?